It's time to declare the best Spider-Man game of all time, and you're gonna help me do it.
Well now, Chris, if we're gonna be choosing our favorite Spider-Man games, I have to go with the one and only Web of Shadows.
No! What have you done? What is it? I can't decide without... Oh no, it's gotta be here! It's gotta... I have to have it!
Never mind, I actually found Web of Shadows and everything's back to normal. Anyways, welcome back, true believers and all you spectacular Spidey fans, to a really interesting Spider-Man related video. So as you should all know, the one and only amazing Chris Baker has started this really awesome event that's going to be happening all throughout March called Spider Madness, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to leave a link to his awesome video in the description below so you can go check it out for yourselves. And as you can tell from the title of my video, I'm going to be breaking down each of my own personal picks for Spider Madness in each of the single brackets that Chris Baker brought up in his video. And for all of you viewers out there, if you have a Twitter page or your own YouTube channel, I highly recommend and urge you to try and make your own personal video about what your own personal top picks are for Spider Madness. To reference Chris's video, the more you awesome viewers that actually want to take time to interact and take part in this event, the more fun it's going to be. And I know for a fact that everyone in the Spidey Squad and myself are having one heck of a great time on Twitter. So starting with the first bracket of Spidey games is the Retro bracket. Now before we go on, I do have a confession to make. I actually haven't played quite a majority of all these Spider-Man games. Now, even though I have seen gameplay footage of all these games, I haven't personally played all of them because I haven't had the time to. I mainly haven't played all the games within the Retro bracket and the Handheld bracket, but for the Modern bracket and the Cinematic bracket, I have played almost all of them. That's why in my own personal list, you may see me skip over a few of the games that Chris brought up in his video, but that's why I'm just going over the games that I have personally played myself. And now with that confession out of the way, we are now moving on to the very first matchup on which I'm going to vote in, which is Spider-Man on the Atari versus Spider-Man: The Return of the Sinister Six. Now, even though I haven't played any of these games, I do remember quite fondly of one of my favorite YouTubers as a kid playing both of them on one of his YouTube videos, and I remember busting a gut so hard from laughing from watching him play them. And I think you all know who I'm talking about.
Holy shit! It's Spider-Man!
You need some help with this game?
I sure do. This shitty-ass fucking game's driving me nuts.
This game can't be shitty. This is Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's Spider-Man, but I'm sorry, Spider-Man. This game really does suck.
That Spider-Man video that the Angry Video Game Nerd all the way back in 2008 was one of the most hilarious videos I've ever seen in my entire life when I was a kid. And given that Return of the Sinister Six was more of a 2D side-scroller beat-em-up Spider-Man game compared to the Atari Spider-Man game, which was...
What is that thing supposed to be? It's like a checkerboard or like a disco cube or something.
That's the Super Bomb.
The Super Bomb.
The Super Bomb.
Well, there's bombs in the game. Why can't that bomb look like a bomb?
Fucking Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Watch it.
Yeah, but since I had such a great childhood memory of watching the Angry Video Game Nerd play all those Spider-Man games, and specifically watching him play Return of the Sinister Six, I think my vote goes to that game compared to the Atari Spider-Man game.
It's a piece of shit! It's a bunch of fucking crap!
Now moving on to the handheld bracket of Spider-Man games, we are going into a little bit of a lightning round within all these games because I have indeed played quite a lot of them, but not all of them. And that easily goes for this first matchup with Web of Shadows and Shattered Dimensions both on the DS. So I actually haven't personally played Shattered Dimensions on the DS, but I have played Web of Shadows on the DS, and you can easily tell where my vote goes there. Next up on the list, it's Ultimate Spider-Man on the Nintendo DS, Game Boy Advance, and also on your flip phone. Now at the time when I was a kid, I did not have a Nintendo DS, but I did have a Game Boy Advance, and you bet your butt that I was able to get that game on the Game Boy Advance, and that's where my vote goes for Ultimate Spider-Man. Next up is another landslide matchup between all these games on the DS from Edge of Time, Friend or Foe, and also Battle for New York all on the DS. Now even though I haven't played Edge of Time or Friend or Foe on the DS, I have played Battle for New York, which was on the DS, which is pretty much a prequel to the Ultimate Spider-Man game on the PS2, which is incredible. So I gotta give my vote to Battle for New York. The next matchup of Spidey games actually include a couple that I have managed to play, that being Spider-Man Unlimited and Ultimate Spider-Man Total Mayhem. However, I have not even heard of Spider-Man Toxic City. Now even though I love Total Mayhem, I think I prefer Unlimited a bit more since it is a free-running Spider-Man game and there is tons of content to be poured into that game daily. I still have Unlimited downloaded on my phone to this day, and it's just a blast to just go back in whenever you feel like and just do a free run as Spider-Man, Spider-Girl, or Spider-Ham, or any other type of character that you can unlock in the game. So obviously this point goes to Spider-Man Unlimited. Now moving on to the last handheld bracket Spider-Man game that I have managed to play is Spider-Man Ultimate Power. This game is pretty much a 2D side-scrolling version of Unlimited. However, I haven't even heard that the game was able to be played on flip phone, so I would have to give my vote vote to the standard version. Now we're moving on to the second to last bracket of the modern bracket of Spider-Man games. And of course, out of all these modern games, we would be starting with both of the PS1 Spidey games. So this pick is actually kind of tricky for me since Enter Electro does have slightly better graphics and slightly better combat than the first game, but the first game is just so nostalgic overall with so many awesome levels and so many amazing boss fights that I have to give my vote to the first Spider-Man game on the PS1. Now this next very difficult matchup pits Ultimate Spider-Man against Friend or Foe and Disney Infinity. And of course I gotta stick with my favorite of that being Friend or Foe. I'm just kidding, it's Ultimate Spider-Man. It was obviously Ultimate Spider-Man. Next up is, of course, Web of Shadows on the PS3 versus the PS2 version of the Amazing Allies Edition. And of course, you guys already know that I'm sticking with the PS3 version, however, this fact that Chris Baker pointed out in his video just made me extremely upset.
Believe it or not, Greg Miller in his IGN days gave a much better review to the Amazing Allies Edition.
How dare you, Greg Miller? How dare you? The next matchup goes up against both of Beanox's original Spider-Man games from Shattered Dimensions and Edge of Time. Now I get why some people say that they prefer Edge of Time over Shattered Dimensions, but for me, 4 is just better than 2, and plus they have the black suit in Shattered Dimensions, which is just amazing. Plus everything from the graphics and the gameplay is just so much better than Edge of Time was, in my opinion, of course. And of course, the final modern bracket matchup goes up against all the Spidey Flash games versus Marvel Pinball. Now this is obviously a landslide vote from me in regards to Marvel Pinball because I haven't played any single one of the Spidey Flash games, plus Marvel Pinball just has so many awesome tables to go through that is one heck of a good time. Now moving on to the final bracket of Spider Madness, of that being the Cinematic Bracket. And we're starting off the Cinematic Bracket with a really weird matchup of that being Spider-Man 2002 on the PC versus Spider-Man Homecoming VR and also versus Spider-Man Homecoming Unlimited Edition. Now I've never played the PC version of Spider-Man 2002 and I also don't own a PlayStation VR, but basically the Spider-Man Unlimited Homecoming Edition is basically just Spider-Man Unlimited with Homecoming as a skin. So that is where my vote goes for that section. Moving right along, it's Spider-Man 2002 on the console versus Spider-Man 2002 on the Game Boy Advance. I guess I was really unaware with the Spider-Man 2002 games because I did not know that there was a Game Boy Advance version of this game, but basically the Spider-Man 2002 game on the PS2 was my childhood, so that is where that vote goes for those games. And the next two Spidey games that are going up against each other is Spider-Man 2 on the PS2 and Spider-Man 2 on the PC. There's nothing for me to say. Spider-Man 2 on the PS2 wins. Next up, relating to Spider-Man 2, is Spider-Man 2 on the PSP versus Spider-Man 2 on Nintendo DS. Now, I've actually played both of these games, and I personally prefer Spider-Man 2 on the PSP because it is basically Spider-Man 2002, but just on your PSP with different textures and different villains to fight in the game. And I actually do remember having a really fun time playing Spider-Man 2 on the PSP when I was a kid. Now, next up is obviously everyone's favorite Spider-Man game, with Spider-Man 3 being on the PlayStation 3, Nintendo DS, and both flip phone versions of the game. Now, there is also the PS2 version, which is majorly different from the PS3 version. However, as you guys already know, I definitely prefer the PS3 version over anything else. And I personally like the game. I think the traversal and combat in the game is fun, and the story is simple yet subtle. Plus more black suit goodness, which I can never get enough of. Now moving on to all the amazing Reboot Man's games, we have the Amazing Spider-Man on your console, Nintendo DS, Android and mobile, and also on your flip phone. And for me, I have to go with the standard version, which is the best version on your console. Now, even though I didn't necessarily like the game swinging, I did really love the web rush ability in the game, and I did like the kind of Arkham ripoff combat that they implemented within the first game. And moving right along to all of the second installments of the Amazing Reboot Man, we have the Amazing Spider-Man 2 on Android and mobile, as well as Nintendo 3DS, console, and also on your flip phone. And for me, once again, I choose the console version just like all the reasons I gave for the first game. And that concludes all of my personal picks for Chris Baker's awesome Spider Madness event. And once again, everybody, if you love Spider-Man just as much as Chris Baker and I and the rest of the Spidey Squad do, please feel free to make your own personal video on your own personal picks on all these awesome games for Spider Madness, and I know that we would love to see what your thoughts are. Even though I didn't get a chance to play some of these games, I just love how prominent Spider-Man is within the world of gaming, and that's just one of the many reasons why I'm just super excited for Spider-Man PS4, and I just can't wait to see how he's going to be treated in that game. But once again, everybody, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to Chris Baker for starting this awesome Spider Madness event, and for you, Spider-Man, just thank you for everything.